Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome two guests with me today. So I welcome Sarah, Gregg, and Jill Ritchie with me today. And we're going to be touching on their method of intuitive psychology. And I'm excited about diving into this today. So just a quick introduction to Sarah and Jill. So Sarah and Jill are the co-founders of the Intuitive Psychology Association, the world's first and only fully accredited intuitive psychology coach training provider. Their groundbreaking program certifies coaches from around the globe in a method that blends the power of psychology with intuitive wisdom. Welcome to the show today, Jill and Sarah. Glad to have you both on. So, I'd love to know a little bit about what intuition is for you in terms of what it means. We hear the term sometimes. And yeah, how did you get into like using it in the world of coaching? Because there's many different methods. So I'm just intrigued about that.
Yeah, great question. Maybe if I take the first kind of part in terms of like what intuition is, and then I think Jill can cover like how we brought it into the world of coaching and really bring it into the practicalities. So I think you're right. Like we hear the term intuition a lot. And I think before we even describe what it is, we've got to first look at like why it's important and why it's important right now in this current time that we're navigating. So I think many of your listeners who are listening to the podcast who have delved into all of your episodes, we're on this search. We're looking for something, confidence, self-esteem, or authenticity. And the question has to be not necessarily how do we get it, but like why have we lost it and what's our route back? So often many of us go through our own personal journey where we're living our lives, we conform, we constrict, we kind of play by the rules, and then at one stage we realize that we've lost ourselves or part of ourselves. We're not living to our full potential. And so we start this quest to really understand who we are, how do we live to our full potential, how do we be more of ourselves, and how do we bring that authenticity forward. And there are many, many different modalities. I know since me and Jill have been coaches for a very long time in this space. We're well versed in this industry. And I know whenever I first started, or indeed whenever we were growing up, you know, self-help, for want of a better kind of term, was there, but it wasn't in the abundance of information that we have now. Now I can listen to multiple podcasts, YouTube videos, download books, ask Google, get involved with ChatGPT. And everyone will have an opinion as to how you should live your life. But our message and why intuition is so important is intuition is about coming back to the truth of who you are, who you are. It's the inaudible voice that we've lost our ability to hear because we're told not to trust it. We're told to trust other people. And as a result of that, we struggle then when we're on this path to really think about what should I do and how should I do it? And do I do breath work or do I do somatic yoga or do I do the confidence course? And it becomes overwhelming. And that actually leads to a lot of inaction. So at the Intuitive Psychology Association, we really believe that we don't have an information gap. We have an intuition gap. And the reason that intuition is so important, and to answer the question, what is it? Intuition is your inner knowing. It is the untainted memory of who you are. And we know that to be true from a science and psychology perspective. So it's that inner nudge, inner knowing that most people associate with, like, oh, I just know it was a felt sense. But actually, intuition is much deeper than that. It's your deepest form of wisdom and knowledge. And what it does is it enables you to remember who you were before the world told you who you should be. And I think Jill can then kind of take that little thread of thought and share a bit more about why specifically we work with that then in the coaching space.
Yeah, and I love how you described that, Sarah. I feel like
Mm.
I've heard Sarah describe this a variation of this a number of times, but every time I hear it, I'm like, it's like the first time I've heard it. And I feel like so many people will resonate with that when they hear it because it is that knowing without knowing. And you asked, why we brought it into the world. And Sarah had mentioned that we have been in this industry for a long time. That wasn't always our story. Sarah was senior in corporate leadership, as was I, for over 20 years for myself. And then we sort of stepped away from that on our own personal journeys, as most people do. And when we started coaching, we saw so many things within the industry that frustrated us because, again, it was constant outsourcing. There was quite a lot of, I know I hate to say it, but there was quite a lot of gaslighting happening in the industry, especially on social media. People continually thinking that actually, if I have this, then I'll be happy. If I see all this, yachts and all these amazing things, then that's the life I should be, and that's the benchmark of success. Yet what we were noticing is when so many people that, had these things were not connected to self, they were deeply, deeply unhappy. And we see that a lot with, with people in the public eye, with famous people who have on paper and obviously to so many people, so many abundant things, but they're deeply, deeply unhappy. And that is that disconnection to self, to essence, to authenticity. And we were seeing even people within the coaching industry really jumping on trends and not really being, I think, maybe well intended, some of them, but perhaps not having the client's best interests at heart. And for Sarah and I, we had been really in the intuitive space and really understood what it was to really understand yourself and return back to authenticity. That is our truth, that is our essence, our power. And we were like, right, how do we bring this into the world? Because Sarah and I both had individual successful coaching practices, but we were like, instead of getting frustrated, let's be the change that we want to see in the world. And so intuitive psychology was really born out of an element of we need to do better in the world. We people in the world, they deserve better. Our clients deserve better. And if there's something not out there, then we need to bring all of our mastery and all of our expertise to the table. And we went to the Association for Coaching. It was really important for us that it was accredited because coaching is an unregulated industry. Anyone can call themselves a coach. So it was really important for us to have it accredited to the highest level in the industry. And when we went, it was quite bold because coaching is traditionally smart goals and goal setting and telling someone to go away and work on an action plan. But what we were bringing to the industry was something so much deeper. It was a lot of our work is eyes closed coaching, because when our eyes are open, we're so distracted with all of the information and everything that we're seeing from a visual perspective. But when we close down our eyes and when we coach from that perspective, we can really drop a client into their intuition. It's that unseen part, it's that magic where all of the information is stored. And when we were able to bring that into the world, and the Association for Coaching were thankfully really, really supportive of it. And when we launched it, the results that we were seeing was just phenomenal. I mean, we knew it to be true because we had so many clients individually and together, but to actually train coaches in this space to take that out into the world and coach from that way, from intuition, eyes closed, and doing it from that way, the results were phenomenal. And those ripple effects is not just on the individual, right? Of course, their life completely, can transform and change because they're starting to really access those parts that have been deeply hidden in the unconscious mind. But it's how they then go on to parent, and that is a massive ripple effect, how they go on to parent their children, how their relationships are impacted. And so, yeah, it's probably something that we're most proud of, Sarah, isn't it?
Yeah, very much
You
so.
can only do so much when it was just Sarah and I. But to see these guys going out there and creating that change in the world, yeah, it's amazing.
I love that because there's so much information. It can get confusing and like exhausting and overwhelming. I've certainly been in that boat. Like, right, which is the best business strategy? Which is the best? All right, what's my ideal perfect morning routine? Pulling together all the hundreds of practices and things like that. But I like what you're teaching is like, and I feel like there's always people going to tell you their way is the best way and it's the answer, right? But actually, what it sounds like you're teaching is your way is the best way when you really know you. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah,
Johnny, it's like you know one of our strap lines. We say it all the time, don't we? Sarah? Your way is the right way. You know, your way it is the right way because, and again, when if you've not sort of done this work, and our coaches all go through the training themselves because they have to be the embodiment of this
Mm,
work. Because if you don't, what happens is you're projecting, like you said, Johnny, you're projecting your map of the world onto other people. And it doesn't always fit because no two people have walked the same path before. You know, no two people have had the same, childhood experiences. So you need to really get your client back into deeply connecting to self, deeply understanding themselves on that level that cannot be done from the conscious mind.
mm, I've got you. And how like there's some people they might be like so at this point where I know I've been where it's just like you got a head full of stuff and you're just really stuck. You got all this information. How can we start coming back to ourselves um, when we've been taught to not think for ourselves or being taught to think in certain ways?
that's a brilliant question. And I think to answer that, it's important to wrap a little bit of the psychology around like how our minds work. So around 5% of our mind is conscious, and that's pretty much what we're operating from on a day-to-day basis. And when we're working with the conscious mind, it's very limited in how much information it can process at any one time. So we will consume in any second around 11 billion bits of information. So that's flooding through your consciousness. But it's estimated around 40 to 50 bits of information is what we're able to process. So to give you that in a percentage, it's 0.0005% of information that you can process consciously at any one time. Now, that doesn't mean that that information isn't in your psyche and your consciousness. It absolutely is. So, when we talk about intuition, it's about opening up access to a higher level of consciousness, a deeper state of consciousness where the answers are literally within. They're literally within the unconscious mind. So, to access that portal of intuition, we know from the science and psychology, and again from ancient wisdom, that when we slow down the breath and our nervous system, whenever we're able to calmly connect and alter our brainwave states through breath, we drop into that intuitive state. It's heightened, like Jill said, even more so when our eyes are closed. So we see clearest actually when our eyes are closed. So when we close down our eyes, we access this state. And often when we're in this state, we'll be maybe in breath work, for example, a lot of people will access this state, but we miss a trick because we don't ask questions from this state. So closing down your eyes, regulating your nervous system drops you into that intuitive state. And it's from that state then you can ask questions, or in with our coaches, for example, they will coach from that space. And what that does, it elicits all of that information that is in your unconscious mind. Think of it like a large warehouse of information, every memory, every thought, every action that you have experienced in your human life is stored there, but it's not consciously available to you. So it would make sense then, wouldn't it, that if we're looking for the answers as to maybe why do I act that way? How is my past replaying out in the present? Why can't I do that thing? Rather than looking outside for a sticky plaster to fix it, but actually first, before we add on those action-based strategies, but actually we go within and we ask our intuition, what is it that I need to know? And what happens, Johnny, is something really interesting because intuition doesn't communicate to us in long, complex narratives. It doesn't involve us replaying out the trauma of the past. What it does is it communicates in short words, symbols, or images, which means you have these rapid aha moments of conscious knowing without knowing. It's like a felt sense, and you instantly know the answers. So it speeds up our journey to authenticity, and it makes like the inaudible audible. It enables us to access those answers that we know lie within. That's an intuitive knowing. Like probably when I hear that, part of you knows, I kind of know that I know, but I just don't know how to access that. And you're looking for the key. Intuition is the key that kind of opens that door to all of your knowledge.
Mm. So yeah, slowing down that and the breath. I love that because I'm a big breathwork fan and
Yeah.
a practitioner in it. But yeah, thinking about asking a question while you're in that state. I love that practice.
Yeah. And Jill has a really good example actually, which might be really helpful just to bring it
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of like a daily practice.
Yeah, I feel like with the breath work again, Johnny, I resonate with it. I'm actually training to be a breath work facilitator too, because I love breath work in the altered state that you can get to, um, without having to outsource, other plant medicines and things. And I feel like, you'll know the power of breath work when you're really in a, conscious connected breath. But when you talk about those questions, I noticed that some people can be so activated in breath and then they feel a certain way, but also it can activate some trauma and some
Mm,
responses for people that then don't know what to do with it. It's like, whoa, this what's just happened there. And then it's like, okay, I'll see you next week, or I'll see you in a few weeks when you want to come to the next session. And so the questions are really important. And I know when I have a beautiful practice where I will connect into my breath, I will ask questions in that sense. When I'm really in that deeper process, I will ask questions, I'll allow the answer to come. And what that also does is it builds so much trust within ourselves, because so many people will say, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's fear? And it
mm,
really feels similar, right? Because those feelings are so heightened, and it's like, but is that right? I'm getting this message through, I'm getting this word or this image, but I don't know if that's right. And it is right. It's just that with learning, like we don't want to trust it, or we don't want to know that, oh, I don't really like what that's just come through as. But the more that we do it, that we build this beautiful trust within ourselves, and it's so much easier to access it when we're in there. We get the answers like that. And I'm not saying that it happens for everyone straight away, but the more that we can sit and almost see it as exercising a muscle, dropping in, asking those questions. Sometimes we don't even need to ask. The message just comes through and we can start to write it down and be with that. Sometimes when we go into the body and ask our heart, even, regulating your nervous system, taking even 5 or 6 deep breaths, allowing ourselves, it doesn't even need to be a 30-minute conscious connected breathwork session. It can be 90 seconds of breathing, really fully opening up the heart, placing the hand on the heart, asking the heart a simple question like, what do I need? And wait. And honestly, the word that comes through, and allowing ourselves to, sometimes it's space, sometimes it's love. The words may be compassion. And what we want to do is we want to do something with that. We want to sit with that word or the energy or the essence of what that is and breathe with it and allow ourselves to feel. Because again, sometimes we want to avoid the discomfort of, whoa, I'm feeling quite emotional here. This emotion's coming through. But if we can allow ourselves to just be with that energy of emotion, whatever that is, it's just energy and motion. 90 seconds is all it takes for it to really move through and transcend. But the problem is we start to feel it. We're like, oh, I don't like that. We'll push it back down again. But actually, if we just allow ourselves to be with that emotion or be with that feeling, it starts to move and dissipate and create more space.
mm. I love that. Yeah, just sometimes not even asking a question, like you said, it'll just come to you, just that kind of like download or hit. But I do like the combination of asking questions. I'm going to ask more questions as well. I like to write one down before I go to sleep, get it thinking sometimes. But it's, yeah, just combining it when you're in that state of the breath and you calm down. One thing I'm just curious about, because maybe the listeners listening and thinking, yeah, I'd love to like breathe and stay, get into that state and then get a bit more connected to myself, get into that intuition. But like, I'm really like angry at the moment, or I'm like really stressed, or I'm really upset at the moment, or an emotion that's they find difficult to process. Do you think doing the practice is like only for a time when you're calm or neutral? Or is there a time, or is there a certain way about going through processing those emotions to get to that intuition?
I think it's an excellent question. And actually, it's when we created the curriculum for becoming an intuitive psychology coach, this was something that we really leaned into. And it was why our curriculum was so innovative and, in a way, in the coaching world, almost quite groundbreaking. Because traditionally, as Jill said, coaching doesn't deal with, you know, past, it just focuses on present and future. But we know past emotions exist. Exactly what you said, sometimes we'll have a trigger point and something will make us angry and we need to process that. And intuition absolutely has a role within that. Now, if you're experienced, you can guide yourself through it. Our coaches kind of exist to help people on that deeper journey. But when you close down your eyes, even if it's gentle, and I'll give an example for people who maybe, like myself, kind of 7, 8 years ago, hated the thought of closing down their eyes and meditating. So I'll give an example of an alternative way to access your intuition. But when you're looking at anger, say specifically, you can, if it feels comfortable, close down your eyes and just scan your body and find, where is anger in my body? Where is that part? So this is where we can introduce elements of parts work. So where is that part? And then you can have a conversation with anger. So anger is not all of you in that moment. It's just part of you. It's the one with the microphone screaming the loudest because it has something to say. And rather than waiting for, the moment when we're calm, actually, like anger's gone. It doesn't want to contact you. Like it's in the moment, it's live, it's got the microphone, it's ready to tell you what's happening. So it makes sense then that we would ask it. So similar to kind of asking those questions, closing down the eyes, regulating the breath, letting anger know I'm here. Um, what is it that you want me to know? Like, what is it that you want me to know? What is it that you're trying to tell me? I'm listening. Like we are a world within a world. Like we operate in the physical world, but humans are very unique in that we have this whole system of thoughts, processes, emotions. Sometimes they're invisible to us. Sometimes I can be really angry and no one would even know because it's this silent rage that's happening within me, right? That's my own internal world that you can't see. But it's very real to us. And by closing down the eyes, we can journey into that world and we can elicit those answers. Now, if that feels like that's a bit too much, especially if you're kind of, in the beginning of exploring kind of like who you are and closing down your eyes feels a bit too much, then journaling is also a really beautiful entry point. So just writing. So when you get into a free flow writing state, you can move out of the conscious mind. So again, you can journal and be like, I'm angry. I'm just going to write down what I'm angry about. And the quicker you write without really consciously processing and thinking about it, the more you access that unconscious wisdom. So the more that will flow out on paper. And perhaps you've experienced it, some listeners have experienced it. I know I have, Jill has, whenever you journal, sometimes you get these downloads, right? And you read it back and you're like, wow, like I don't even know where that came from. Well, that's your intuition. It's because you're out of that 5% conscious mind and you're into that higher, deeper level of wisdom and intelligence.
I like that. Yeah, there's some really useful tools you gave there, like the journaling and yeah, the in addition to the breath work and closing down the eyes that you've talked about as well is a really really powerful one. I like that one. So yeah, like in terms of, I just want to ask you about like the art of having a coach or someone to support you with this. What's the benefit of having like a coach help you through this versus tapping into your own intuition? Or is it a little bit of both you find works really, really well?
Yeah, I feel like both. For us, we set intuitive psychology up with the desire for coaches to bring the client back to self so that there is not a reliance on a coach ultimately. So there's no codependency. We don't want clients working with people with our coaches for years. We want to be showing a client how to do it for themselves. But as Sarah said, so many of us have so many programs, so many conditions that we're like, I don't know how to do it. I don't even know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I repeat these patterns in relationships. I don't know why I have these thoughts and why I sabotage after this amount of time and in a job or whatever. And actually, we can be so heady, right? So in our heads that we just need a safe space held for us to be able to drop in. Because there are so many people that don't know, okay, closing their eyes, that sounds easy. I usually do that when I'm going to sleep or I'm resting or maybe I'm sunbathing. but actually knowing how to do it this way, um, I feel like sometimes things can be activated from the past, and sometimes there's big emotions there. And so to have a qualified, experienced coach there to be able to help you navigate that in a really healthy way, like anger, recognizing that healthy anger, that's okay. Like all emotions are welcome because when we unlayer it, and our coaches are trained to unlayer all of the emotions and get to essence essentially, right? Because underneath it all is love. Like we truly, underneath all, when we peel it back all the layers, anger has something to say, but usually there's some fear in there. And underneath fear is, a little bit of dark, right? But when we go into that, there's light. When we can just peel it back. But we don't really know how to get there ourselves. But what we want to do is we want to show people you can access this for yourself. You can do this. You have all of the resources. And very important, as I said before, that we do not project our map of the world onto anyone. It's really important that each client goes on their own individual journey and moves through all of those layers so beautifully and starts to sort of shine through and move through and who they are and who they want to be in this world. Because I think a lot of the time we're like, right, okay, if I need to do the 9 to 5, or I need to have the business and I need to make the money and I need to tick all the boxes and please people. And we come back and we're like, well, why do I feel depleted? Why do I feel like
Mm.
guilty because I have all these things and I've ticked all the boxes and I'm doing all the things, but I feel a bit ashamed because I'm still not happy. There's something still missing. And, I know so many people, that was definitely me. And sometimes, I know now that even now I can do a lot of this work myself, but sometimes, Johnny, I need space held for me because I'm in my head and that's part of being a human. And that's it. This isn't about perfectionism and making sure that, we never feel those feelings again. Gosh, we are human beings and we're having a human experience. Um, but having someone to hold space for you that is equipped and qualified and walk that path themselves, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And what makes our coaches really unique as well is, the examples that we're given are just the tip of the iceberg of what is possible with your intuition. But our coaches are trained in 34 techniques that they're able to use that are specific. So they go really deep on that intuitive journey. They're trained to work with the whole person. So we've touched on like the past a lot here, but it's past, present, and future. So they work with the whole person. We call this our shadow alchemy method. And the real goal of that is to make the unconscious conscious, to increase that self-awareness and ultimately get that person back to a deeper sense of self-trust. And as Jill said, we can bring ourselves like so deep. And if you're in the fortunate and kind of privileged position, let's just say it, to have a coach, then absolutely that should be available to you. But also, we really believe at the Intuitive Psychology Association that we're not gatekeepers of this wisdom. Like, we should be able to give these tools and resources in the way that we're doing on this podcast. And we've got lots of free resources. Like, we've got a question method that we can share with listeners afterwards, which are 22 questions that are normally reserved for our coaches in training that you can work through to really use journaling to access some of those questions, or indeed, guide yourself in that intuitive state. We want to make it as accessible as possible. But in our training, it's about up-leveling coaches so that they're innovative, so that they're accredited. We accredit to the highest level in the industry. We're only one of 11 in the world to accredit to that level. So our coaches are very professional and they enable that person to really connect to that deep sense of self-trust, access their intuition, and as Jill said, have that longevity in that experience so that afterwards they shouldn't need one of our coaches unless kind of something happens. They're able to really keep that connection with their intuition on a longer term basis.
Mm. I really enjoyed hearing about like the value of not having the codependency as well, of that you're tapping into your intuition, but ultimately we're humans, we need other human beings
Yeah.
as well without the codependency. um for me, I like to put a lot of work into like my own trust, but doesn't mean that I need to express, especially as someone who's a big advocate for men's mental health, need to
Mhm.
express my emotions when I get like those up levels of uh, anger or stress or just feeling sad to someone else,
Mhm.
letting them hold the space so I can
Mhm.
do that, so I can build a better relationship myself and allow myself to feel, therefore serve others a lot better. It's really, really powerful without being dependent on the human being, so or codependent on someone else. So yeah, love what
Yeah.
you said there about not making sure it's very clear it's not about codependency, but it's about guiding them when there may be a lot of stuff in their head that's been conditioned over the years.
Absolutely.
Totally. I love that you're doing that, especially in men's mental health. We obviously we work with men too, and we've had incredible guys coming in and training with us who are in the sporting industry, like Premiership football and things like that. And what they've seen is a huge shift, taking it into like Premiership football and rugby and things like that. Um, it's so needed. We all have intuition. It's not reserved for just a few.
Mm,
And it's so important that we learn or relearn, unlearn the stuff, unlearn and then relearn, right? To trust ourselves because like we said it, you said it, we say it, your way is the right way, always. Always. And how do we bring people back to that? And we see it so much. And you sound like someone who's really tapped into that as well, Johnny. And we're here in a mission, right? We're here because we want to make the world a better place. And if everyone really leaned into their intuition and trusted that and came back to essence, my goodness, imagine how the world would be. And if we can have a small part to play, and we're already doing that, but by even sharing things like even just questioning and inviting people just to not do more when there's the busyness there and we're like, I don't have time. We need to double down on that. Like actually taking space will give you more time. And I know it sounds so counterintuitive, right? But it does when Sarah and I are like, okay, we are so busy right now. We're like, right, stop everything. And we will literally stop everything and take like a day or two. And we will come back like new people, Sarah, don't we?
Yeah.
That is the power of presence, of space, and not doing more, not always chasing, not, being, having to do more, be more. It is that space to really allow that wisdom to come through. And that's it. It really is quite simple. I'm not saying it's always easy because sometimes we're so disconnected from it. But even 5 minutes each day
mm,
with the intention to breathe, with the intention to tune into intuition, over a few days, just a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Imagine, the change in you from a nervous system regulated perspective as well. Start there and build on it.
mm. Yeah, even 5 minutes a day, everyone's got 5 minutes, right? Just do that. And then stepping away. Do you find like in your methods, I'm just curious, do you find like just finding pure silence a useful tool as well? Just like not music, nothing, just that little bit of time with yourself.
Very much so. I think pure silence can be hard to cultivate at the start. I often tell the story that whenever I used to work for a big university and they had introduced mindfulness, and this was about like 8 years ago now. And I remember going to the first session and I lasted all of 2 sessions and was like, I absolutely hate this. Like, I hate being alone with my own thoughts. I like my busy mind, because I'm getting dopamine hits from it. Like, I loved being busy. I loved the adrenaline rush. And the thought of kind of going into complete silence was terrifying. So I think, work at whatever level you're at. You can start with even just a bit of guided meditation or counting your breath, but coming back to yourself and listening to that voice within, like when you can be quiet and be in the stillness with nothing, it is incredible. Even just how you tune into your body and how it feels. Like Jill's given examples, like we're all busy, we live in a fast-paced world. Sometimes I don't even realize how tired I am unless I take that time. Like I don't realize how my body feels, but when I can close down my eyes, and I can breathe and I can be in silence, you're not just picking up information about what you need. You're picking up how your body feels. Like my heart is racing, actually I'm tired, my shoulders are tight, like my jaw's tense. And all of that information, it's not a sign of failure, it's just feedback. Think of it as like, we have all of this data on our watches and our kind of fitness apps. Like you can see how many steps you've done, you can see the hours that you've slept. Well, intuition is a different form of data that's specific to you. Like in real time, you can very quickly go, actually, I can feel the stress in my body, and use that exercise that Jill so beautifully illustrated. Okay, what is it that I need? Like, give me a word and ask, give me a word, and often it'll be space, trust, time, rest. Something will come forward that's specific to you just by asking the question. Our challenge, and it kind of goes back to the place that we started, is the challenge is we've lost the art of asking ourselves. When we feel that way, our instant kind of reflex and conditioned response is to ask someone else, go to the internet, or diagnose ourselves with being broken, or gaslight ourselves and go, you're fine, everyone else can do this, what's wrong with you? And we're kind of in that loop. But accessing that intuitive wisdom just breaks that conditioned loop, brings us back to that untainted, deep wisdom. And it's always resonates. Like it always resonates. It will always give you what you need if you ask.
Asking that powerful question. I want to ask like one final thing because I know our mind sometimes could be a good way in actually keeping us out of danger, right? Like we see a real threat, like someone with a weapon, we're going to run away, right? Or we see a wild animal, we're going to hide, right? Or whatever. It's useful in that context, but it does overprotect. I found like on things like what people are going to think of me, public speaking, all those kind of things, right? Rejection from asking someone out, all those kind of things. So it kind of can catch us. For like the individual who's maybe gone like, and I've been there before, when they've gone with their gut, their intuition, they're like, right, I'm gonna do this, and then that thing's not worked out or gone to plan. What kind of guidance can you give that individual who may be like, well, I went with my intuition before and I feel like things didn't go to plan. How do they sort of like come back to it next time?
That's really interesting because I would say, Sarah's nodding, right? I would say they didn't actually go with their intuition if it didn't work. Because I would go as far to say as 100% of the time your intuition is right.
Mm,
Now, what it might do is it can create a bit of chaos because it could take you out of a relationship, okay? Or it might make you have a conversation that could upset other people. It might mean
mm,
leaving a job. It might mean people getting angry. So from that perspective, it's going right, okay, but look what happened. It created chaos and it upset people. But again, this is why the more time we can spend in the body, the more we can learn to trust ourselves. And actually, a lot of the time we've created lives and situations that are all about pleasing other people. And the moment we start to trust our intuition, it's not always going to feel good because some people won't like it because you may change and you may start doing things that don't please other people.
Yeah.
But I would say that your intuition is always right. It's maybe that they've that's what's happened, or they've gone against their intuition and thought it was their intuition, but it was maybe just fear because they can feel quite similar, those feelings. It can feel really activating and it can feel terrifying because that gut feel, it's like, I know I need to leave this job or I know I need to leave this relationship, but that's going to create a bit of carnage and
Mhm.
upset for people. And so it can feel challenging. It's not always, I trusted my intuition and then it was all rainbows and roses. It's not always like that, but
mm.
that other path is your essence, it is your truth. But it's a choice, right? It's a choice. Sarah, what were you
Yeah,
thinking?
I was thinking exactly the same thing, and I'll just add a little bit because I thought it was interesting the attachment to trusting your intuition and somehow guaranteeing an outcome. Intuition will tell you the right thing to do, but it doesn't guarantee an outcome. So your gut might be, I want to ask that person out, but we cannot control the response that we get from that person. That gut instinct may be right. And the invitation is, you know, like the gut instinct, maybe you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You need to like be able to kind of put yourself in positions where you're able to face rejection, and that intuitive nudge could be correct. But we cannot use intuition to control like the outside world. Like just because your intuition tells you to do something doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome will be correct, but it will be the right thing for you because inevitably that will move you forward. It will be the thing that you want to do. But as Jill said, sometimes it is tuning in to like, is this ego? You know, is this fear? Is this me trying to convince myself? And like the more we tune in and work with it, the more we can some like distinguish between the two. And often that comes from a place of silence. But yeah, I would say, you know, don't get confused with intuition being able to guarantee an outcome because it can't. It would be lovely. I mean, if me and Jill kind of learned how to control the outside world, we'd be a couple of millionaires right
Mm,
now.
For
I
sure.
think.
But what it does do is it will always, always give you growth.
Absolutely.
Always. And that's it. It can feel so uncomfortable, right? But you will always grow. And it's not until sometimes you'll get that immediate wow, boom, knew that was right. And sometimes it's like 6 months later, you're like, wow, that was tough. But had I not done that thing, I would not be where I am right now. And
Mm,
so it's the unknown, isn't it? We want guarantees. We're like, I need to just see in that
mm,
crystal ball. I need to know that it's going to all work out for me. Wouldn't it be wonderful? But again, that's when we can go into the heart. We can drop into the body with the eyes closed, place a hand on the heart, and ask the heart the question, should I do this thing? And it's a clear yes or a no. Like that's what I'll go with that. And I'm like, sometimes it's a yes, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. But I'm like, I don't want to do it. It's uncomfortable. But I'm like, I know I need to because it's like an itch. It will just keep coming back. It's like it never goes. It's
mm.
always there. And it's like gets a little bit louder, until we answer the call. If we don't, we keep repeating the same patterns over and over again.
I love that. Yeah. The mind wants to come in and like protect and perceive things and yeah. And I love so kind of it sounds like it is the right thing to do, like, and just, the outcome could be anything, but it is going to guide you if you keep following it into the right path. Um, and I can share a very vulnerable example from my own life on how I can kind of like resonate from that because a lot of our listeners are very into sort of like the dating space and like finding, romantic relationships and sometimes have a lack of confidence in that area and certainly been there. Like for me, I remember just having this intuition, made no logical sense to ask this woman out. And I did. And we had the most beautiful date, right? And we had the most amazing time. And then I got heartbroken. So then my mind, of course, is like, "Mm." But however, it led me to a path of a new community and some of the deepest healing work that I've ever done. So, actually, even though that was a really painful experience and very heartbreaking after the while, it actually led me to a path from that intuition hit. So I just wanted to share that as an example because I think that's what you're kind of leading to is
Exactly.
it may not get you the outcome you wanted, like that long-term loving relationship or whatever, like then, but actually it leads you to another path because you followed your intuition.
For
Yeah.
sure. And then you'll go
Such a
into
powerful example.
into the next relationship ready,
Mm,
right? Those lessons that you learned in that community and that connection and that healing journey that you went on, I believe it's preparing you to be so ready for that beautiful, deeper relationship that you desire in the future.
exactly.
Had that not happened, you wouldn't have maybe been able to have that conscious, beautiful relationship in
Mm.
the future.
I love that. And I can think of examples in the work life, professional life as well, when gone for decisions on jobs and things like that. So, yeah, no, I'm loving what you're teaching and how empowering it is for an individual to come back to themselves. So, as we kind of like wrap up today, I could go on talking for ages, but like, where can the listener find you if they want to find out more about the work? I know you mentioned some resources today. Um, and yeah, is there anything you'd like to leave us with as a final point?
Yeah, so in terms of contacting us, if you've enjoyed this, we'd love to hear from you. So you can connect with us on social media, Instagram at we.r.ipa. You can connect with us there. And also our website is intuitive-psychology.com. And we'll send you the link for the question method, which is our free resource, which will enable you to open up your intuition. It's a beautiful resource. We get incredible feedback on it. It's really, really powerful. But there's lots and lots of resources on our website as well, and we'd love to hear from you. And in terms of something to leave with, I think it's think about the information that you're consuming and how do you balance that with your intuition? How do you balance that with your intuition? How can you cultivate some time to really come back and listen to that voice within and amplify it and make it a little bit louder? And that's our invitation to you. If you've enjoyed kind of listening to what we do in the coaching space. Maybe you're a breathwork practitioner, maybe you are new to coaching or you're curious about becoming a coach or you want to go deeper with your practice, then our enrollment opens twice a year. And we only take a very small cohort through each year, maximum of 25 per cohort. And our next cohort starts in November 2025 and applications are currently open. So if you'd like to discuss that, you can reach out and have a call with myself and Jill, and we'll happily share a bit more on the training and what it involves. And full information can be found on our website as well.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And anything from you, Jill? You want to leave?
Um, this is where I will normally try and think of something, but actually I feel like we've covered quite a bit, and I feel like it's just been a really beautiful conversation. Sarah said it so beautifully. There's a lot of information out there, but what is your intuition telling you? Um, Give yourself that grace to feel, you know, to feel what you need to feel and to trust that. And thank you so much for having us. This has
Yeah,
just been
thank
a
you.
beautiful, beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate you. And you can check out all the resources we talked about in the show notes today. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.